Okay, hey guys. My presentation's gonna be, one second, let me figure out. My presentation's over IBM Watson. So, what is IBM Watson? Well, every every so often, IBM likes to take on these grand challenges. On their website, they describe them as being just short of impossible tasks, and they basically really want to push their boundaries and see what they can really accomplish in terms of computing. And of course, it's always a really big spectacle and good for PR and things like that. But really, it's just doing impressive things with computing. So back in around 2003 time, they created a supercomputer named Blue Gene. Um, and then in probably a more popular and more exciting fashion, they created a computer named Deep Blue who was able to defeat Gary Kasparov in chess. At the time, that was a very, very impressive feat because chess computers didn't really exist back then. They didn't have stockfish or anything like that that could actually beat good human players. So defeating the reigning world champion Gary Kasparov, if you've ever looked into chess at all, you probably know who that is. That was a really big deal, and there was some controversy over the exact method by how that happened, but he was defeated, and yeah, it was a very impressive task. So after Deep Blue, IBM wanted to take on a new grand challenge. Um, at the time, I think it was the CEO was thinking of the CEO of IBM, that is, was thinking of a new grand challenge to undertake. His first idea was defeating the Turing test, which is convincing a human that they're talking to another human. But the Turing test is very hard to to defeat. No computer has really done it since, um, because you basically have to entirely mimic a human in order to pass it. So one stepping stone that they thought of a way to do that, of a way to do something that would be kind of moving towards that goal, is to create a computer that could defeat the best Jeopardy players. So the reason they thought this is because Jeopardy questions are phrased in the form of an answer, and then you basically kind of ask the question in Jeopardy, even though, I mean, it's flavored like that. It might not necessarily actually be like that, but that's the flavor of it. The questions are written in very human kind of sly ways. They have a lot of wordplay to them, and it's not always necessarily easy to even figure out what the question is asking. So creating a computer that could figure out what the heck they even wanted to find out, and then determine that information to give as an answer is a really important, or is a really difficult task. Um, so IBM uses their technology called Deep QA in order to do this, and Deep QA is really the heart of Watson, I think. So what Deep QA is basically machine learning. Words are hard. A machine learning algorithm that utilizes several language processing algorithms. So it doesn't necessarily come up with any new language processing algorithms, but it uses a ton of them in order to kind of synthesize what it thinks is the question that it's being asked, and then from there it uses that question and uses a bunch of data in order to generate a ranked list of possible answers, and they each all have evidence behind them, and they get a rating on how confident it is that that is the correct answer, and then based off of that list, that's what it will answer. So this diagram straight from IBM's site, just kind of a high level overview of how that works. Um, I'm not necessarily sure how open source this software is. I think it's kind of proprietary. IBM's a little bit secretive sometimes, but there's enough to get a decent idea of what's going on, at least. Um, some other technologies that it uses Apache UIMA, which is Unstructured Information Management Architecture. That's just used for analytics on unstructured data. So IBM Watson has 200 million locally stored pages of data, and all of that data is from things like thesauruses, dictionaries, articles, scholarly journals, things like that. Um, 200 million locally stored pages of data like that, and then that Apache software is used in order to help parse through all of that and give it to deep QA. As far as hardware goes, Watson has 90 IBM Power 750 servers. That comes out to 2,880 threads and 16 terabytes of RAM, which is about $3 million in hardware. So you think about how strong a computer that Watson is. I think 3 million is kind of a low number, to be honest. I would expect it to be more if I would have had to guess, but I guess it's about 300 million, at least when it was being used for Jeopardy. One kind of neat thing to note is that Watson does not have access to the internet for that data, because it has to be very, very fast for Jeopardy. So all of the data is stored locally, and actually for Jeopardy, all of that data was stored in RAM because storage was just too slow to hard drives are just too slow to facilitate an answer fast enough. So as far as the Jeopardy games go, Watson played 2 games against Ken Jennings and Brad Renner, 2 very, very strong Jeopardy players. And some comparisons to humans are that Watson was not able to buzz in before it knew the answer. Whoops, close out of that. Watson was not able to buzz in before it knew the answer like a human would. Sometimes in Jeopardy, players will buzz in and they won't quite know the answer yet, but they'll use that split second to think of the answer after they've already buzzed. Watson can't do that, so it has to overcome that. It's also unable to use the category context clues. So if you've watched Jeopardy, there's sometimes things like a letter that all the answers start with, or they might all be related to chapters in a book, things like that. Watson's not able to utilize that. And as far as its performance went, Watson won, obviously, but it wasn't 100% dominant. For some of the final Jeopardy answers, I remember seeing a number that Watson answered with only like a 34% confidence rating on one of the final Jeopardy answers, which it probably wouldn't have answered if it didn't have to. But you have to write down an answer for final Jeopardy. So even though Watson won handily, it won by about $25,000 in the first game and $50,000 in the second game. It didn't completely shut out the other contestants. This was back in 2011. So now after Jeopardy, it's had a lot of improvements since then. IBM claims that it's 24 times faster and it's had a 90% size decrease. They said that it used to be about the size of a bedroom, and now it's about the size of 3 pizza boxes, so that's quite a decrease. And after Jeopardy, it's been adapted to be used in healthcare. They've had a lot of partnerships with hospitals and medical facilities. That natural language processing is useful for when a patient gets a diagnosis. They have a medical history and a list of symptoms and a diagnosis, and then based off of all of those things, Watson's able to go through a list of treatment options and then select the best ones for that one patient, and that is used in conjunction with the recommendations of nurses and doctors in order to give better treatment options to a patient that maybe it would have been kind of a less certain decision without Watson. Also, IBM's formed something called IBM Watson Group, which is basically just a subsection of their business that they use to they're using Watson as a cloud service and a lot of different things. So one thing that I found was called Watson Machine Learning, which claims to help machine learning developers deploy their programs faster and train their models faster. So however Watson does that, Watson technology does that. It's also been used as a teaching assistant. Again, natural language processing skills very, very useful in that kind of scenario, as well as weather predictions. So yeah, Watson's been used for a lot of things. I think that the whole solving the natural language question answer problem is really cool, And yeah, so here are my sources, and I hope you have a good day.